First thing on the show, we're going to go through a couple things in the NFL news cycle. Brandon Aiyuk and Joey Bosa, Jalen Hurts, a couple guys are on the list. Let's go ahead and get started off with Brandon Aiyuk, though. So, according to ESPN insider Dan Graziano, the 49ers are planning to trade for a first-round pick this offseason for trading away Brandon Aiyuk and getting a first-round pick in return. Aiyuk is expected to sign a contract north of $20 million annually. I do have a couple of names here, Drew, for trade partners. You tell me if any of these, as a 49ers fan, who would you like to see compensation from? So I have the Cardinals, the Jags, the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Commanders. Which one of those probably sounds like the best landing spot for Brandon? And what compensation would you like to see?
Well, definitely not the Cardinals. And the Washington Commanders, I can't imagine in any way, shape, or form, especially with Adam Peters over there now, we would be talking about their first-round pick because it's quite high, as our viewers might know. So I would probably say that it's the Buccaneers. They're pick 24th or 25th. That seems about right. You're not going to draft a player of Brandon Ayuk's caliber, at least not right away. I won't say that, obviously, they couldn't become Brandon Aiyuk in that range. And a team like the Buccaneers, who could potentially maybe be losing Mike Evans or bringing an older Mike Evans back and signing Baker to an extension, a player like Brandon Aiyuk would really for those that don't know, obviously I'm a big homer when it comes to the 49ers, but if you look at Brandon Ayuk's advanced stats and his yards per reception and the amount of yards that he put up on like 72 less targets than CeeDee Lamb this year, he's just an absolute monster. I don't even know why we would be entertaining the idea of trading him in the first place, but I'm not going to come on the podcast and cry and say this would never happen because it's the NFL and anything could happen. So we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, so I have, just for context, it makes sense for the Bucs, like you said, either bringing back an older Mike Evans, which there are reports that there is the contract disputes between Mike Evans and the Bucs. They're not really super close right now.
Shocker.
Yeah, so as much as Mike Evans probably needs to be a Buck for his entire career, he's a Bucs legend already at this point. He might not be a Buccaneer next year. So getting another number one out there is going to be definitely really important for Baker Mayfield. So trading away your 26th overall pick, your 2024 first rounder, and then I also have here a 2024 third rounder on top of that to compensate for the late first. So that's probably roughly compensation. It's going to vary team to team and how they see fit. Some guys I have here, it's only a first rounder because it's like a mid first. Some of them is like a late first, like the Chiefs. It's a late first, so it's 32nd overall. So you have some additional stuff on top of that. It's going to depend team to team. So each one of these I think makes sense. Like the Jags, I don't know if you're bringing back Calvin Ridley because you're going to end up having to give away a draft pick, your second round pick, if you end up re-signing Calvin Ridley. The Chiefs obviously need wide receivers. Bucks we just discussed, and then the Commanders, you have Terry McLaurin, but getting more weapons for potentially Drake May coming in and getting drafted is not going to hurt for sure. Now, I think this whole thing is really coming up because of the whole Brandon Aiyuk family situation of everybody posting, and you've already talked about that. You do put stock into some of that stuff when family members talk and say, somebody's leaving. Are you still putting stock into something like that in this situation?
I mean, I'm not going to go back on my word or what I said previously now just because it's my player. I do think it's a little bit different in the wake of a Super Bowl loss that quickly after the loss, people say things and they're upset about things. Yeah. Brandon Aiyuk had 3 catches in all of our playoff games. So whether he was underutilized or the defenses were just scheming for him, if you want to be a number one wide receiver in this league, when the defense sets out to stop you, you still have to find a way to get open. So
Yeah, for sure.
I think that to just be like the 49ers just decided not to throw the ball to him in the Super Bowl is kind of, if you go back and look at all of our playoff games, he had 3 catches in all of them. And the thing about the 49ers is they have a ton of talent on offense, and it's almost to the point where sometimes it's detrimental because they just don't go with what works. And when you have to feed a Debo and a McCaffrey and a Kittle and all that stuff, sometimes you don't get your fair share. Obviously, Juwan Jennings was on his way to Super Bowl MVP
Yeah.
before they lost. So it's just one of those things. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the family just speaks out on their own. I think that comes from somewhere. I know that they obviously have discussions with their family because they can't have discussions with their teammates about being unhappy. So when there's
Yeah.
smoke, there's fire.
Yeah. And we're going to go ahead and stay with the 49ers with the next part of this. The 49ers are expected to reach out to Joey Bosa if the Chargers decide to release him due to cap space reasons. And if the 49ers are unlikely to re-sign Chase Young, the possibility of the Bosa brothers playing together is a reality. So that's what I'm hearing personally. Obviously, this is kind of, in my mind, going to come all down to money. If Joey Bosa is getting released, what type of money is he going to ask for out there on the open market? Is he going to try to, you know, take this, 15, 16, $17 million a year deal? Or are we talking something smaller to try to play with his brother? What do you, depending on what Joey Bosa asks for, is this something you're interested in, or is this something you want to kind of stay away from?
I don't know, man. I think it's almost like if I were gonna, I'm writing this in pencil. I'm not writing it in pen, but I think it's almost a done deal.
Hmm.
Like if he gets cut from the Chargers, let me put it to you this way: Joey Bosa is fucking rich. He
Yeah.
is rich. $15 million next year, or 3 or 4 million or whatever to pay for play with his brother. I think 100% absolutely. If he's a free agent, I feel like Joey Bosa's calling the 49ers.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, might be one of those situations where they both call at the same time, so the call doesn't go through. There's not a good connection there. But I would almost pencil that in as almost, if I were to give you 3 things that I think happen with the 49ers, I would put Joey Bosa becoming a 49er if he's
Hmm.
cut to the top of the list. And we did the cap casualty stuff last week, and obviously we already saw it, Jimmy Garoppolo, and although that's not official yet, but a couple others out there that have already basically been speculated that they are going to happen. And I think that Joey getting cut is probably almost a certainty.
Yeah.
It is a little weird with where he would play. We obviously have Hargrave and we have Armstead,
Hmm.
but I've talked about Armstead being a cap casualty for us. And if we can move on with Armstead and replace him with a year or two of Joey Bosa just to kind of get through the cap stuff, and then maybe you look to the draft after that, I would be highly interested in that. Not that I'm expecting him to come out and have 30 sacks next year, but
Right.
your second defensive tackle doesn't have to be super. But then again, we also don't have a defensive coordinator, so who knows?
Yeah, and we got to keep the reality in perspective too that Joey Bosa has had a ton of injury concerns in the past, and he hasn't been able to really stay healthy. So, I feel like there's a lot of name basis for money that people think that a certain player should make a certain amount of money because of their name almost. I mean, we're going to talk about it when we get around to we're going to do the NFC East and AFC East for the free agency predictions. And when we sit here and we talk about the Eagles, they have so many free agents. And you go, oh my gosh, look at all these free agents and look at all these names, but they're just names and half of them haven't performed up to what their name should be. So I think it's one of those things where Joey actually might not ask, like you said, he might not ask for as much money as maybe people think. And we'll see if this actually happens.
Have you seen the speculation on, maybe I see it because I'm 49er centric on my follows and stuff, but people are like, the 49ers have to call Pete Carroll. The 49ers have to call Bill Belichick. And I'm just like, are you guys crazy? These coaches are not coming to be the 49ers defensive coordinator. Are y'all crazy? Like, I saw Jeff Ulbrich as a potential. Obviously, the Brandon Staley thing is out there.
Right.
But I'm just like, yo, Pete Carroll is not coming to San Francisco to be the 49ers defensive coordinator. What are you talking about? Mike
Yeah.
Vrabel is not coming to San. Could you imagine Mike Vrabel in San Francisco? Could you imagine Bill Belichick in San Francisco? They would hate it. They'd have to fly a fucking plane in every day to come to work. They're not living in San Francisco.
Right.
I think that like people get these ideas and they're just like freaking wild. Why wouldn't they want to come to San Francisco? They're guaranteed to win a Super Bowl next year. Yeah, right. How's that worked out? Like, I think it's
Right.
just crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Moving on, Chris Sims had some interesting comments about Jalen Hurts being overrated this week. I'm going to go ahead and read you the quote. I don't know if you heard this one. Quote, I respect a lot about Jalen Hurts, but I think Jalen Hurts is also the most overrated player in football. That's me. I know I'm wrong. I take a lot of crap about that comment, but he plays quarterback for a team that's an all-star team. They have the best O-line in football, and it's not really close. I just think that if you put some other quarterback in Philly, you put Kyler in there, you say, damn, Kyler's amazing. Is he the MVP of football? End quote. And, on one hand, I get it. The only other quarterbacks are in a similar situation. When I say similar situation, I mean good wide receivers, a good wide receiver cast, and a good O-line, maybe not, super duper elite, but a good solid O-line. You're talking about Tua, you're talking about Dak, Brock Purdy, Matt Stafford. Great wide receiver talent, good offensive line. But the difference is the 49ers offensive line wasn't, and the Cowboys and the Dolphins offensive line wasn't as good as the Eagles. I think the closest here is probably the Dolphins and the Cowboys, but you're talking about guys who also get a similar amount. They get a lot of hate. Tua gets a lot of hate. Dak gets a lot of hate. Brock gets a ton of hate, right? And Matthew Stafford's probably the one who doesn't get a whole lot. To me, I don't see a whole lot of hate being thrown Jalen Hurts' way, and he kind of skates by on the blame on certain things. And
It's
a
because
lot of
his
it,
coach is a joke. Like
yeah, no, absolutely,
Sirianni takes the brunt of the blame for him. But I gotta tell you what, man, Howie's sleeping in bed right now at night, and he's looking up at that ceiling, and he's thinking about the Jalen Hurts contract, and he's like, "What the frick did I do? Why did I do this?"
right,
So I haven't looked at his contract too much. I don't know what the outs are, what the cap space casualty stuff is for the Eagles. I know they only got like $13 million in effective cap space, so I'm not exactly sure where they're going this offseason. But Jalen Hurts is definitely not the guy. Just like Brock, okay, he's not taking a team of lesser thans and raising them to the next level. You got to surround him with a lot for him to take it to the next level. And if they're not going to let him run, if he's not going to run because they want to stay healthy, then oof.
right. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna restart my phone, and I am gonna hope that this helps my lagging situation, and hopefully allows me to just immediately jump back in. So I'm
Just buy the camera, bro.
yeah, I know, but I'm running this job officially now. So that's officially on the books, and I've had to buy a handful of things. So I'm trying to, like, tomorrow I'm going to have to go to the supply house and pick up some stuff. And first thing I'm going to have to do is buy something new, which sucks. But because I'm not my dad where I get all excited to buy new tools. I'm like, shit, I got to buy something else. I'm like, that fucking sucks. I'm like, whatever. But yes, I definitely do have to buy the camera. Okay. So it was about 14, 15, 16.
You know what kind of irritates me about I hadn't read the Dan Graziano, whoever the fuck that is. I gotta tell you, the 49ers have some really plugged in people, Tim Kawakami, Mike Silver.
Yeah.
If those guys were reporting a Brandon Aiyuk trade, I'd be a lot more nervous. That's kind of why I'm not freaking out about it. But
Right.
they're talking about the reason why they have to trade him is because of his cap hit in 2024, 14.2 million. I'm like, it's because we picked up his 5th-year option, guys. Like, if we extend him, his cap hit goes down. It's
Yep.
not going to be 14.2 million if he signs an extension. And frankly, the 49ers are probably working if he's willing to sign that extension right now before CeeDee Lamb signs his.
Yeah.
So I always hate, like, I feel like these guys that work for ESPN and shit, I'm like, how the fuck did you get this job? You don't understand how simple shit works. Like, the cap hit any cap hit is insignificant unless it's Deshaun Watson's. Like, that's literally the only cap hit that matters.
Okay, cool. 17. Um, Making the argument for Jalen Hurts on either overrated or properly rated, underrated can be kind of thrown either way. If you look at the statistics, he's 14th in passing touchdowns. Excuse me. Yeah, 14th in passing touchdowns, 7th in money throws, but he's 29th in danger plays, 15th in yards per attempt, but he's third in air yards per attempt. 22nd in just all going to be completion percentage, 22nd in deep ball completion percentage, 14th in pressure, 30th in play action, 18th in clean pocket, but he's 20th in true completion percentage, and in red zone he's 12th as well. Again, that's all completion percentage. 9th in QBR, 10th in EPA, 28th in catchable pass rate, and then top 3 in most rushing categories for quarterbacks. So you can make the argument, as much as I want to sit here and I want to say Jalen Hurts is overrated. Is he MVP? Is he a top 10 quarterback? I mean, if we're to sit here right now and make a top 10 quarterback list, he might crack it, or he might just be right outside of it, depending on how you see him. But I mean, at the end of the day, Chris Sims is right. He does play behind the best offensive line in football. He does. That tush push is because of the best offensive line in football. And all of those rushing touchdowns that he ended up getting are 1 and 2 yard touchdowns. So you don't really put a whole lot of stock into something like that. He took a big step back, and the whole offense took a huge step back from last year to this year. When you watch them, last year Jalen Hurts looks incredibly impressive, and it's not just the running, it's the passing game. And this year, I know a lot of that has to do with Shane Steichen and getting rid of him. He just doesn't look that good. So I think you can make that argument either way for the overrated thing. Is, again, as much as I'd like to point at him and say you suck, you're overrated because you're an Eagles quarterback. I mean, my quarterback's Dak. I get the hate, and I have to listen to it every single day, and it's constant. So
Yeah, but would the Cowboys trade Dak for Jalen?
no,
Okay. Would the Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Ravens, Texans, Packers, Lions, 49ers, any of those teams, and I added the Bengals in there because if he hadn't got hurt, they would have been in the playoffs. Any of those playoffs, like the Rams, but the Rams trade Stafford for Jalen at this point with his cap hit.
probably not.
Would the Buccaneers trade for Jalen Hurts? Probably. I'll give you that one. That's
Yeah,
Baker versus Jalen. That's the only playoff team this year that would take him, besides the Browns, obviously. I mean, they had Joe Flacco. They probably would have liked to have Jalen Hurts. But
right.
the Browns aren't a real playoff team. They're not like I'm talking about the perennial, every year we know these teams are going to be there. None of them are taking Jalen Hurts.
Mm.
And over their team. So when you're talking about the top 10 teams in football year in and year out, and none of them would trade their guy for this current guy,
Yeah. And you look
it's
at, again, it's a supporting cast too. It's not just the offensive line, it's the wide receiver talent, right? AJ Brown, when he's being utilized and he's playing to his full potential, is, top 10 in the league. And you look at Devonta as a number 2, and you run down the list of some of those guys like the Dolphins. Am I taking Jalen Waddle over Devonta? That argument could be made. Am I taking Devonta over any of the Cowboys number 2, depending on who you put as the number 2? But Brandon Cooks, yeah, I'm going to take Devonta over Brandon Cooks personally. Niners, I wouldn't even touch that situation. And then the Rams is one that is untouchable as well. So he has, again, it's a good supporting cast. So it's hard to say. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not. At the end of the day, you want there's a knee jerk reaction probably from the majority of people to say this guy's a clown, but I don't think he's exactly fully wrong in this quote here.
I don't know what the hell most overrated football player in the NFL is, because that's the one thing is the terminology he decided to use. Because Dak Prescott's about to be the highest paid football player in the history of the NFL, and he's definitely not anywhere near worthy of that title. It's just the next quarterback that gets paid every single time is going to be the most highly paid quarterback in the history, most highly paid player in the history of the NFL. So, the thing about it is he was just replacement level football this year, but the year before he
Yeah.
was an MVP candidate. So it's just one of those things where we're going to see this year is going to be big for them. And You put yourself. The problem with these cap hits for these quarterbacks and the contracts that are be handing out is you have to be absolutely sure. Because if you're not, you get yourself kind of put in. Look at the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. They gave him the bag, and the team sucks. Now he got hurt, but
Yeah.
is anyone worried about the Cardinals next year? I don't think so. Look at the Broncos. They gave Russell Wilson the bag. Look at the Browns. They gave Deshaun Watson the bag. And when those players don't live up to their contracts, it's so hefty. I personally think Deshaun Watson is the most overrated player in the NFL, not Jalen Hurts. But Hurts is he's trending towards definitely not giving the value back on what he's being paid. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. And last one, Steelers quarterback feels like carousel at this point. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Mason Rudolph are right now being evaluated by the Steelers this offseason to replace Kenny Pickett. It was almost a foregone conclusion that Kenny Pickett probably is not going to be starting next year to start out the year at the very least. Russ, again, is most likely going to be cut by the Broncos. Justin Fields, most likely going to be traded. Mason Rudolph on their roster currently. Out of those three guys, who makes the most sense for this team?
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, the fourth.
Did you see? Justin Fields started his unfollowing of all the Chicago Bear related stuff.
Hey man, I just want to say I didn't take it that serious until his dog unfollowed them too. I was like, damn, now it's getting serious now if his dog's unfollowing people.
So he was on the podcast with the St. Brown brothers, and obviously one of them plays for him. And so Amon Ra is like, yo, bro, what's up with you unfollowing the Bears? And he's like, oh, man, you know how it is. Like, sometimes you just need a break. I still fuck with the Bears. It just I unfollowed the NFL also. I didn't want my feed to all be just NFL stuff. I'm like, bro, if you don't have a better answer than that, then just tell them before the podcast, yo, you can't ask. Like,
and then on top of that, he followed a bunch of Falcon players too around the exact same time.
Like, how are you going to say, oh, yeah, just sometimes I need a break from the team I play for where I'm supposed to be the franchise quarterback?
Yep, where you have guys in our comment section fighting to the death for the Justin Fields over Caleb Williams, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Making political campaigns.
Dude, I didn't think that there was actually an argument for this until I posted a couple of the Justin Fields things, and then all of a sudden you get those people in our comments just going crazy. And I'm making an argument for, to them. Like, listen, he's not that good. I'm telling you statistically why he's not that good, and he's had his opportunity. I'm telling you why it makes sense to
You don't even
Caleb.
know what Chicago thinks about Justin Fields, Jacob. You don't even know, bro. You don't know what Chicago's thinking right now.
Dude, yeah. I didn't know that it was that big of a deal. But damn, it is, and it's almost out of control. Get over it. Justin's gone. Chicago fans who want Justin, or Justin fans, he's gone. Get over it. It's done.
Yeah,
gosh,
I reshare a lot of the stuff on my Twitter profile and onto Instagram and stuff. And someone DM'd me and told me I'm a blogger boy idiot. And I'm like, the funny thing is I don't know what video he was reacting to. I don't even know if he was reacting to a video. He might have just decided to hop in my DMs and insult me. But he's like, man, you're a blogger boy idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, you're right. And I don't even have a blog. I just sit here and you bring the facts and you bring all the representation and all the smart stuff. And I'm just here, hot take cannon. I just am just trying to say the craziest shit possible that is going to get us views. So he's right. I am just a blogger boy idiot, but I'm just like, I want to DM back and be like, yo, appreciate the feedback. Which video were you responding to? Cause I got a lot out there, and I'm just surprised by the discourse around Justin Fields. Like, we've watched him for a couple of years, and you have the number one pick. That means like you get to start over.
Yep.
And you can do anything with that pick. And people are like, yeah, we want to keep Justin Fields. I'm just like, I'm confused. Like, I'm just confused as to what is it about what you've seen from him that makes you think like, yeah, this is what we need. This is what we got to do. I would move on from Brock Purdy if I had the number one overall pick. And he's been far more successful than Justin Fields. I would take Caleb Williams in a second.
Yeah. So this is just just for a trade package to trade away the number one overall pick and let's say keep Justin Fields. I saw this one, I forgot where, but there's this like trade package floating around with the Giants, and it's the Giants would send pick 6, 39, 70 in this year's draft, along with 2 more first rounders in the next 2 drafts and Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, you're talking about a crazy haul to move up. Where are they picking at? 6, right? 7, so you're, and reports come out that you would need a historic haul to move the Bears off of that pick right there. So you get KT, 3 first rounders, a second rounder, and a third rounder, and all those picks are early first, early second, but you can't pass up the opportunity to take a quarterback. I'm
And
not
even
saying that Caleb is generational, but you can't pass up the opportunity to take him.
even if you could, um, this see the funny thing is this conversation would be so much more exciting if the Panthers had their own pick. It'd be like, what are you doing? Because Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But even if you could, you're going to take KT, which is cool. He's not Aiden Hutchinson, so I was wrong on that. Add him to a defense that's already really good. I don't think KT's moving the needle as much for that defense. And then you're adding Malik Neighbors at 6 probably.
Yeah.
And that's taking the Bears to the next level. Like, they already have wide receiver talent. Like, they already got a couple good guys over there. You're going to bring in a rookie, and that's going to all of a sudden take you guys from 4 or 5 wins all the way up to the playoffs next year. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the top end of the NFC is loaded with talent. The
Their own
Cowboys are
division.
loaded with talent. The 49ers are loaded with talent. The Packers are loaded with talent. Like, you're going to compete with that by adding a rookie wide receiver at number 6 and a couple picks. I don't get it. Reset the clock, add Caleb, and like, you're paying Justin Fields next year. Right, really. That's the other thing that the Bears fans are forgetting. You guys are going to give him the bag. You're going to pay this dude. Like, you're gonna do what the Giants did with Daniel Jones.
That's
That's
what
your
it feels
plan is.
like.
For a couple first round picks down the line and Malik Neighbors and Kayvon Thibodeau, you're going to give Justin Fields $200 million. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even saying it wouldn't be. I'm not even saying that Justin Fields can't turn her around. Maybe he can, but he hasn't even had a good year yet. Jordan Love had an okay year, and they gave him a little baby 2-year extension. The year that Daniel Jones had, where they paid him, was far better than any other year Justin Fields has ever had. It's wild.
Yeah. Maybe that's gonna. It's supposed to be the Bears are supposed to make a decision on Justin Fields here in the next week or so. So maybe next week on the podcast we're gonna be discussing where Justin Fields is and how it impacts that team. So hopefully you guys stick around and see our commentary on that one.